Hey everyone, my name is Rishab. I'm a student at Harvard College studying neuroscience, and today I'm joined with Shriya.
I'm also a student at Harvard College studying cellular and molecular biology.
Yeah, and we're both pre-med students. Right now, we're going to react to Preaching Peas, should you go to an Ivy League or BSMB program?
So here's the deal. If you're in my top percentage of subscribers that has gotten into both a consistently top 10 pre-med institution.
Okay, so this guy's top percentage of subscribers are getting into T10s. My top percentage of subscribers, those are just Harvard, Stanford, MIT, like nothing even below that.
And a BSMD program. Well, then you're in an interesting situation here because I've had a lot of people in this scenario hit me up asking, what decision should I make? What school should I go to? I'm trying to...
Honestly, this is actually a really good topic for a video. When I saw this, I was like, dang, no one really covers this. Like no one really talks about this. And so it is important to think that through. And so I really appreciate him making this type of video.
Make this video to give you guys the most realistic decision pathway possible. A way to really frame your decision-making process. Imagine that you got into Harvard for pre-med.
Okay, wait. Let me go back here for a second.
Best case scenario. Imagine that you...
This is Harvard Medical School. Something only Harvard students would know. Okay.
Got into Harvard for pre-med and Brown's program in liberal education.
And just so you guys know, the reason why I made that comment is because HMS is way far from where we are right now at Harvard College. So I've only been there 3 or 4 times for various reasons. There are some hospitals, labs there, but just a quick thing.
Which school would you pick? First of all, what are the actual advantages with going to Harvard University? We need to start breaking this down very clearly so that you know exactly what you're getting. However, when it actually comes to applying to med school, don't think that because you went to Harvard, you're going to get some kind of crazy advantage over another student who's going to a state school or any other type of liberal arts school, for instance, that I like to talk a lot.
I'll pause right here to say that Pratik is completely right on this. I think, a medical school is not going to look at you and say that, hey, because this kid is from Harvard, they deserve some inherent advantage over someone who went to some state school, for instance. I don't think there's really a distinction on that.
Yeah, if anything, it might make it a little more difficult because now you have to stand out amongst all of these other really accomplished students.
A lot about on my channel. The Harvard name brand is only going to get you so far, so understand that prestige in itself, while you might get you some clout in school or whatever, it's not going to immediately just get you into some other Ivy League med school. Those med schools want the best.
Okay, I will say though, the reason why Harvard has this prestige is because we have the best research and amazing hospitals and things like that, where you can shadow, where you can volunteer, where you can do amazing research and get those top level publications that you wouldn't be able to get at a state school. Maybe for some specific disciplines, sure, but just the quality of labs here across all disciplines is just very, very high. So whatever field of research you're interested in, which is pretty important for medical school, you will find a place to do that at Harvard. Shreya, what's your experience doing research here?
Yeah, so I did research at Harvard this past semester, and honestly, the bio life sciences research scene at Harvard is I think pretty much unmatched. You just get access to pretty much any affiliated, not access, but I think it's easier to email someone at the Harvard Med School affiliated hospital or institution and say, hey, I'm a Harvard student. So yeah, it's been really excellent. The research, facilities, professors.
Yeah. And that's ultimately why I see Duke students doing virtual internships at Harvard, in Harvard labs, or Northeastern BU students doing stuff here, is because we have that access. So beyond I know he says that, oh, the name will just get you clout or whatever. I don't think it's for that purpose. It's because we have better opportunities here. And honestly, it is really just unmatched. I didn't think about that too much when I was deciding which school. That was one of the top reasons.
Best candidates for their school, they don't actually care about you as an individual that went to Harvard. It doesn't matter to them. The education at Harvard is also solid, but it's comparable to other schools out there. What's the real advantage with going to Harvard? Why am I even making this video in the first place? Well, here's the thing. Harvard is easy. Let me repeat that one more time. Taking classes at Harvard and getting good grades is actually a lot easier than...
Okay, so this is cap. Shreya, do you want to explain why?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not easy. Grade inflation is not really a thing because a lot of the STEM classes you take at Harvard are graded on a bell curve, essentially. They really hand out a certain number of A's, certain number of A minuses and things like that. And you're competing against other Harvard students who are very driven, very smart, intelligent. So it is definitely not easy necessarily to get good grades at Harvard in STEM classes. I can't really speak to that.
And I think like if you're comparing to a state school, as he mentioned earlier, you're going to have students there who didn't take AP Bio, AP Chem. For us, the intro level course, it was pretty much assumed that you had taken AP Bio and AP Chem, and not just taken that, I would say get 5s on those exams. Like you needed to, they didn't explain at all what ATP was, what those like basic things that you learned from those classes were. It was just assumed that you know that. They were getting into thermodynamics of protein folding for like half the semester, right? And so I think this is straight cap, and I'm sure he's going to cite like right here, right? The GPA statistic of like, yeah, Harvard's GPA, average GPA is 3.8. This is true, 100%. But let me tell you 2 things. Number one, the reason why this is because half of Harvard students are economics or some of those other majors. Beyond that, there is already a gate to get into Harvard. To get into Harvard, you need like 99 percentile SAT score. You need 99 percentile AP scores or IB scores. You need top tier GPA, free here valedictorian of 1,599s in every single class. So getting that level and coming to Harvard now, and for you, is it easy? Exactly. So I just think that to compare that and put this number out is just inherently misleading.
Now we're going to compare our Ivy League example, just keep in mind Harvard, to another top-tier BSMD program that's not Brown-Pliny, but it's among the top BSMD programs and has all the advantages. We're going to work with RPI's Physician Scientist program because that's the program I currently attend. I know a lot more about it, and we're going to go from there.
Okay, so I have a ton of kids joining my Discord, commenting on YouTube, saying like, hey, which BSMD program is top? And based off of my findings, let me know if you agree with this. I don't know if Brown-Pliny is even the top one or RPI BSMD is the top one. In my view, I would actually say that University of Pittsburgh BSMD is the highest. And the reason why is because their med school is the best one out of the BSMD programs. I think it used to be, really? I think it used to be like Northwestern had a 7-year BSMD program. And that one was really good because Northwestern Med is like amazing. But you look at UPitt's medical school, compare that to Brown Alpert, which of course rankings are like objective, but a 30th-ish rank med school or RPI BSMD unranked med school compared to UPitt's med school, I would say that UPitt BSMD, and of course you can look into the opportunities and stuff as well, research the things that you'll get at UPitt, it'll actually be better than some of these other schools. So I don't know why, but all the BSMD people, they never mention UPitt BSMD.
I don't know anyone doing Pliny, just people that got in and decided not to do it.
Right. Wait, okay. So people who got in and decided not to do it, where are they now?
They're at Stanford.
Okay. Yeah. And same here. I think I met people at Coke who got in. I had someone from my area who I consistently kind of like beat in science fairs who got into Brown-Pliny, chose to go to Stanford. I don't know if like Brown-Pliny is the top BSMD. I've heard some things out that there might actually be better one UPitt. So I'm curious to see if Pratik, if you're watching this, what are your thoughts on UPitt BSMD?
This comparison is a lot more realistic simply because it has actual arguments for both sides. For those who are unfamiliar, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, or RPI, has an accelerated physician scientist program. It's a 7-year program. There is no MCAT requirement. The GPA requirement is to maintain a 3.5 over each of your semesters in the program. And in the end, they basically ask you to do a total of 400 hours of some kind of volunteering-related activities.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty nice. What are your thoughts on like MCAT and GPA stuff? Because we need high GPA and all that.
I think that not having to take the MCAT is so many hours of preparation that go into it. It's so stressful because you need like to get into like pretty solid med schools, like at least 520.
Yeah.
4 plus, which is really difficult.
Yeah.
So that honestly is huge because I think it's one of the biggest things like going in to apply to med school,
right?
That apply MCAT, and then maintaining a 3.5 GPA, like that is very manageable. Tremendously concerned about, what med school do I want to go? If you just want to go to a med school,
yeah,
and become a doctor, then
right,
it sounds like a good deal.
And I think that is kind of where the distinction is, though, because when you go to a school like RPI, those people, are they going to be like just partying the entire 7, or like not 7 years, but the first 3 years of the undergrad part of the 7 years, right? And I think that's why a ton of schools shut down their BSMDs, actually. I was looking into this. A lot of schools ended their BSMDs because the physicians who graduated were not as keen on like medicine. 400 hours of medical activities, I think that's a good requirement of RPI, where they're like still forcing you to do like shadowing clinical experiences. So you know if you actually want to do medicine, right? Because we don't want doctors who like in their 4th year of RPI realize like, shoot, I don't want to actually do medicine.
So before coming to Harvard, actually, I was pretty much said I'm going to apply to MD PhD programs. I wanted to get a really robust experience in doing basic sciences research alongside, getting proper medical training to be a physician. There's lots of other opportunities like MD MBA programs. You can get your MPH and things like that. So that is just something that is not possible with BSSE programs. You're fully committed to get an MD, and if you decide later on that that's not really what you want to do.
But that's why I guess a lot of BSMD applicants, they like know they want to become doctors. And I have no doubt that like Pratik, he's going to graduate from RPI being a great doctor. But what if you want to do other things? What if you want to get an MD PhD? What if you want to get MD MBA, start a business, run your own hospitals, go into hospital administration? You are very limited if you go to that BSMD program.
Another logical loophole that people fall into is that they take these residency like track record placements from a school like Harvard, which are fully open and available online if you're interested. You can literally look up Harvard 2023 matches residency and find an entire document of all the students from their school and where they matched into residency programs. Here's the deal. People take those statistics for a school like Harvard and then Albany Med, and they compare them and they say, whoa, look at this. Harvard matched a bunch more kids into anesthesiology and neurosurgery than Albany Med did. Well, here's the deal. Students who come to Harvard Medical School are the best recruited students in the entire country. Albany Medical School is an excellent med school that has a lot of really, really bright and talented kids. But Harvard Med is Harvard Med. You can't just directly correlate the residency matches to the med school. What about the students who put in that work?
I don't know. I think it is fair to say that you shouldn't compare people like HMS, for example, to like Albany Med. I think a more fair comparison would just, I don't know, they have like a med school separate. People who went through BSM.
Oh, yeah.
Just attend the med school. I think that would be a more fair comparison. Does that make a difference?
So yeah, I think that's a completely valid point that he makes, that you shouldn't like just compare the residency matches inherently. But what I will say is that like, once again, if you are going to a school like RPI, surrounding yourself with people who are, I guess, like of that caliber, a lot of people say like you are what you surround yourself with. And I feel like that is somewhat true. Like the friendships you make and the people you're in with like clubs and things like that, if they are really highly motivated, I feel like it motivates you as well to like do more. And honestly, just like opens your mind more. Like at like there's tons of people here doing like social justice and social activism work that's like very impressive. And I feel like those ideas, when in collaboration with STEM fields, create like great partnerships, great ideas. At dinner, we can go to Berg and talk about politics and things like that. Hearing from these people who are like world-class debaters and like, know everything last 50 years of what the interest rates were, memorized to heart. And like these extremely bright students, I feel like it's just so amazing to have them in your class. And I'm not saying that like you won't find those types of students at other schools, but just a concentration of them at a school like Harvard, MIT, Stanford for undergraduate degrees, I think is going to be higher. And because of that, I would say there are other benefits at that undergraduate level to potentially inspire you to do more and then get it to a better medical school. And ultimately, like do better in medical school, so then you match it to a better residency. I think LS1A being pretty hard as a class and organic chemistry being pretty hard as a class are preparing us for the rigor of medical school so we can do really good on our exams there and then get better residency matches as well. So I think there is a little bit more logic to this than what Pratik kind of boils it down to. But the inherent claim that he makes that you can't compare it, I think that's like pretty legit.
Med school that you end up going to is kind of in a questionable state. Drexel is undergoing some other problems with their med school and their hospital. What is the real outlook for you here if you join this program? It's one thing if this is the only BSMD program or good quality pre-med school that you got into, sure, you can go for it. But if your other option is to say go to Columbia University, well, then you're going to want to think about this a little bit differently. On one side, how much time and money and mental peace do you save by going into this program? And on the other side, how much do you stand to gain by not joining it? I've just thrown a ton at you in this video,
So I think one thing here is like the main benefits that he claims is time, money, and that GPA, MCAT, mental stress type of situation. So first, let's talk about the time, right? The 8 years, 7 years program, even there's a 6-year program, which we know a few people who go to that via Koch scholarship. There's like multiple people at Koch scholars who are going to the HKMC, that one, I forgot which one it was. Anyway, so it does definitely like save you several years.
I don't think that the time save is at all important. Like 2 years in the scope of your entire medical career is nothing. Like, what's the difference of practicing as a physician at age 30 versus 28? Like, ultimately, it doesn't change anything. So I don't think, like, at least for me personally, that time save like makes absolutely no impact in my decision, because like people take gap years, people like do other things. Like, ultimately, you might end up finding yourself spending those 2 years doing something that you thought you were saving initially by going to like a BSMD program. So I don't think the time.
Yeah, I think one thing there is like definitely, I would actually add a little bit of nuance there, because I do think that saving 2 years and then like residency programs can be incredibly long, like neurosurgery, 8 years. Let's say you're just like longest specialty, longest fellowship, everything, right? That's a lot of time to be like not earning like a crazy wage and like basically being alert, like being in school for a very, very long time. So I think that saving 2 years there is like, I would actually argue, at least in my viewpoint, that it does help a little bit. You might be more like Shreya, you wouldn't see that. So I guess it does depend on like what type of person you are and like what your goals are. But what I will say is that like, I feel like everyone who's a high schooler who's watching this video right now, right, who's watching Pratik's video, I'm sure there's some college students watching as well, right? We can all agree that our interests change over time. And as you explore more, like you learn more about what you want to do. So I feel like to get to that point where Shreya was talking about earlier, right? Like those 2 years you saved, you might end up like spending those doing something else. Like those 2 years that you saved, you might actually regret that, like, hey, I didn't get to go out, study abroad for a year, like see the world, do whatever I wanted to do this opportunity, do this internship, because I was locked into that BSMD program. So I think it does depend on the specific student, like what your goals are for that time, and plus money argument, because you save, I guess, some money for that tuition thing. But more of that money point of view, because there are some medical schools that do offer lower tuitions, as well as some undergraduate programs that offer lower tuitions. Harvard has one of the most generous, tuitions out there in the country. In fact, if I go on the internet right now and I search up Harvard tuition, I spelled it wrong, but Harvard tuition, average cost after aid is $13,000. So let's remember that number right now. And let's type in RPI tuition. This is the school, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. Pratik was talking about average cost after aid is $30K. So if you're a student who qualifies for aid, you could be saving a lot of money by actually spending more time and coming to Harvard, right? That's one thing. Another thing is medical schools have a lot of scholarships too. So I think it's like, for instance, NYU, I think is like pretty much free.
Yeah.
So I think just like boiling it down to that as well in the money, there is a little bit more nuance there that you have to consider. And then third, he says the mental stress. So, MCAT, GPA, for sure. But I think what I will say is if you're getting a 3.5, good for you. Like, of course, you can party more, you can like do whatever you want more than students who have to study. But are you going to be good at studying in medical school? Are you going to be a better doctor, able to learn more knowledge and like do all of that stuff? I don't know about that. So I will say, like, I feel like forcing you to like learn how to study, forcing you to at Harvard College to get into Harvard Medical School, we already have to be at the top percentage at Harvard, which is like crazy competitive, right? And so to get at that level, you have to learn how to study. There's no way around it. Like you can't just get a 3.6 and go through. So I think there is some nuance there as well about like forcing you to do
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like even just second semester of senior year where I kind of of high school where I kind of let go of my studies a little bit. Even like that amount of time, it took me as a pretty decent studier in high school, it took some time for me to adjust back to college, like getting back into those good habits and like really learning how to study again. So I can't imagine for like 6-7 years if I like was on that mentality and then, residency and things like that, I would have to get back into that mental state. I think it would be difficult for me. That being said, though, maybe you are the type of student that is actually really hardworking and like even with this 3.5 requirement, you'd be getting like a 3.8, 3.9 because that's just the type of student you are. In that case, then, it is kind of nice knowing that you are well above the requirement to get into medical school.
So at the end of the video, Pratik gives this BSMD acceptances table where he tells you that if you got into a top pre-med school, i.e. Harvard was his example right throughout this video, and top BSMD program like RPI or Brown PLME, those were in his examples, then your best option in most cases is BSMD program. And so let me just say, I will disagree with this. I think now being at Harvard, I realize there's so many like more benefits, opportunities, research things to explore that I don't think I would find at a school like RPI or Brown. And so I think going to a top pre-med program gives you more opportunities. It also gives you more flexibility almost, which is counterintuitive because you feel like, oh, you have to do more work during the semester to maintain your high GPA. You have to study for the MCAT. You get more flexibility in terms of doing those MD, MBA, MD, PhD, time in between. You can take gap years, things like that. So I think I would almost want to turn this acceptances table into something like, if you are this type of student or if you value this more, then you should choose this. If you value this more, then you should choose this. Like, how committed are you to just doing an MD? How committed are you to research or things like that? Like, oftentimes students who are applying to BSMDs, they've done a ton of research in high school, right? They're very interested in innovating and STEM as a whole. Are those students going to thrive at a BSMD program where they don't
100%.
have all that research stuff?
I think the bottom line is if your sole goal in life is to become a physician and you know that this is what you want to do, I'm going to see patients from 9 to 5 or whatever, like that will be like my primary career thing, then yeah, go BSMD. But if you get into a good BSMD program and a top pre-med school, I think he lists like BSMD is the best case. I will disagree with that. I think if you get into a top pre-med school, it clearly shows that you have interest beyond just being a doctor. Do you know what I mean? Like BSMD, I feel like they're looking for people who are just very committed to that MD track. Whereas like getting into schools like Harvard and Stanford, they're not just looking for that, right? Like they're looking for other things that really show you're an innovator, like you mentioned, have like lots of interests just beyond this field. So I would go with the top pre-med school because you clearly have interests outside of just an MD that I think those opportunities are better.
Yeah, and I will say, concluding note for this video, I think that beyond all of this, there is an inherent benefit to surround yourselves with like-minded people. If you want to surround yourselves with people who have come from, various differences, but the one thing that unites them is they want to become a doctor and they want to like help people's physical condition like improve essentially, right? Like, then maybe you should consider going to the BSMD program because you will surround yourselves with that small class size of 30 students or whatever. But for instance, for myself, who did science research all 4 years of high school, published several research papers, that was my biggest thing. I wanted to meet other kids like Shreya, for instance, who had that same experience where we can collaborate on projects, do other things. I also wanted to be surrounded by people like my roommates right now who are econ majors, people who are doing crazy things in various fields. I wanted to be surrounded by, top debaters in the countries to have those late night conversations and do whatever. And so I think that like, it does come down to which student you are in particular. There's definitely way more nuance than this video tries to boil down. But I do kind of appreciate Pratik's, effort into like creating this type of video for students to like add a little bit more thought to it. But I would say add even more thought to it because there is a completely different perspective than what he shares here as a BSMD student. So with that, guys, I hope you really enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe down below. And if you guys want us to come back for another video, then be sure to leave a comment down below. And if there's enough, maybe Shreya will agree. I have no idea. So with that, we'll see you next time.